Welcome to Mayhem CEDH, where questionable decks meet questionable pilots. For this week, we're jamming Brothers War to see who the best new Brothers War commander is. With that being said, let's check out the pod today. First, we have Josh on Queen Cheaty Wheel, a Boros stacks deck that seeks to land key stacks pieces, use Queen Kayla to break parity, and win with beatdown or combo. Adam on Urza, Lord Cloudkey, a combo deck that seeks to use a Cloudkey effect in the command zone to set up an artifact-based combo. Evan on the Pain Train, a Mardu deck that seeks to land Megatron, generate mana from beats, and win with beatdown, combo, or big spells. And finally, Jack on Mishra, Where's My Artifacts, a Rakdos combo deck that seeks to assemble a graveyard-based artifact combo and utilize Mishra's ability to bring it to the battlefield for the win. And now, with each pilot in their respective corner of the screen, let us begin. And for those of you in the Ames area, stick around to find out how you can get 10% off your next Mayhem Ames purchase. Adam draws, plays a Plains, and passes. Evan draws, plays an Ancient Tomb, a Felwar Stone, and a Mox Diamond, discarding a land as it enters. Evan passes. Jack draws, plays a Blackcleave Cliffs, a Mana Crypt, a Lotus Petal, and Wheel of Fortune. In response, Evan casts Enlightened Tutor, fetching up a Chromatic Orrery onto the top of his library. Then, each player discards their hand and draws 7 cards. Jack plays a Jeweled Lotus and passes. Josh draws, plays a Plains, a Mox Diamond, discarding a land as it enters, an Arcane Signet, a Giver of Runes, and passes. Adam draws and plays Pithing Needle, naming Queen Kayla Bing Krug when it enters, and passes. Evan draws, plays a Bloodstained Mire, a Mox Opal, and cracks his Bloodstained Mire, paying a life and fetching up a scrub land onto the battlefield. He casts his commander, Megatron, Tyrant, and passes. At the beginning of his upkeep, Jack wins his Mana Crypt trigger. He draws, plays a Wooded Foothills, and casts his commander, Mishra, Tamer of Mach Feywa, and cracks his Foothills, paying a life, fetching up a Badlands onto the battlefield. He casts a Demonic Tutor, fetching up a card into his hand, and passes. Josh draws, plays a Bloodstained Mire, a Vryn Wingmare, and passes. Adam draws, plays a Mana Crypt, a Walking Ballista where X equals 1, and passes. Evan draws and moves to combat, attacking Jack with Megatron. Jack takes the hit, and in his second main phase, Evan converts Megatron and adds 7 colorless mana. He follows it up with Chromatic Orrery, the Reaver Cleaver, and pays 4 life to cast Toxic Deluge, where X equals 4. In response, Adam activates Walking Ballista, pinging Megatron. Then, all creatures are destroyed, Evan plays a Jeweled Lotus, and passes. At the beginning of his upkeep, Jack wins his Mana Crypt trigger. He draws, plays a Luxury Suite, and casts Buried Alive, fetching up a Braids, a Risen Nightmare, Walking Ballista, and Phyrexian Devourer into his graveyard. He follows it up with a Wheel of Misfortune. The table chooses their numbers and reveal.
12.
17.
25.
Evan doesn't wheel, Jack, Josh, and Adam discard their hands and draw 7, and Adam takes 25 damage. At the end of Jack's turn, Josh cracks his Bloodstained Mire, paying a life and fetching up a Plateau onto the battlefield. The turn moves to Josh. Josh draws, plays a Plains, a Mox Opal, a Thalia Guardian of Thraben, and passes. At the beginning of his upkeep, Adam loses his Mana Crypt trigger. He draws, plays an Inventor's Fair, a Mox Opal, and casts his commander, Urza, Lord Protector. He follows it up with a Merchant's Dockhand and passes. Evan draws, plays a Gemstone Caverns, and recasts his commander, Megatron, Tyrant. He equips the Reaver Cleaver to Megatron, plays a Talisman of Hierarchy, a Disciple of the Vault, and passes. At the beginning of his upkeep, Jack wins his Mana Crypt trigger. He draws, plays a Mana Vault, and a Dark Ritual. In response, and seeing a win attempt coming, Josh casts Silence, locking his opponents out of casting spells. Jack adds 3 black from Dark Ritual and channels Takenuma, Abandoned Mire, milling the top 3, returning Trazen the Infinite from his graveyard to his hand, and plays a Mountain. At the end of Jack's turn, Josh casts Pyroblast, destroying Urza, Lord Protector. The turn moves to Josh. Josh draws, plays a Needle Verge Pathway, and moves to combat, attacking Jack with Thalia. Jack takes the hit, and in his second main phase, Josh plays a Walking Ballista where X equals 2, and passes. At the beginning of his upkeep, Adam wins his Mana Crypt trigger. He draws, plays an island, and plays Teferi, Hero of Dominaria, down-taking him, putting Jack's Mana Crypt into his deck third from the top. Adam passes. Evan draws and channels his own Takenuma, Abandoned Mire, milling the top 3, returning Gix, Yawgmoth Praetor to his hand, and playing Gix, Yawgmoth Praetor. Before Evan moves to combat, Josh casts Path to Exile, exiling Megatron, with Evan fetching up a Mountain onto the battlefield town. He moves to combat and attacks Jack with Disciple. Before damage, Josh activates Walking Ballista, pinging and killing Disciple. In his second main phase, Evan plays a Scion of Draco and passes. Jack draws and takes a damage from his Mana Vault. He plays an Emergent Zone, a Basalt Monolith, and passes. Josh draws and moves to combat, attacking Adam with Thalia and Jack with Ballista. Both take the hits, and Josh pays 2 life and draws 2 cards through Gix. In his second main phase, Josh plays a Mountain, an Esper Sentinel, activates Ballista, putting a counter on it, and pings Teferi, killing it and passing. At the beginning of his upkeep, Adam loses his Mana Crypt trigger. He draws and plays Narset, Parter of Veils, paying for Josh's Sentinel, and downticks her, looking at the top 4, putting a Karn Silex into his hand, and the rest on the bottom. Adam passes. Evan draws, equips the Reaver Cleaver to Scion, and moves to combat, attacking Josh with Scion. Josh takes the hit, Evan creates 5 treasures, and in his second main phase, he recasts his commander, Megatron, Tyrant, and passes. Jack draws and takes a damage from his Mana Vault. He casts Trazyn the Infinite. With no answers, Jack presents a loop of Trazyn using Phyrexian Devourer's ability from the graveyard to exile his entire deck, putting +1/+1 counters on Trazyn equal to his deck's mana value. Trazyn as the commander, cringe. Trazyn in the 99...
Pretty good.
Pretty alright, honestly.
Pretty good.
With Walking Ballista's pinging ability on Trazyn, the table sees the writing on the wall, and Jack wins the game. Josh draws, plays a Plains, a Chrome Mox imprinting Sardian Avenger when it enters, and a turn 1 Serra Ascendant. Jack groans, and Josh passes. Adam draws, plays a Polluted Delta, and cracks it, paying a life, fetching up a Tundra onto the battlefield. He plays Serum Visions, drawing a card and scrying 2 to the bottom. Adam passes. Evan draws, plays a Savai Triome tapped, a Chrome Mox imprinting Marionette Master when it enters, and passes. Jack draws, plays a Command Tower, a Lotus Petal, a Lion's Eye Diamond, and passes. Josh draws and plays a Mox Diamond, discarding a land when it enters. He moves to combat and attacks Jack with Ascendant. Jack takes the hit, and in his second main phase...
Who's ready for the really fun Trinisphere?
The table groans, and Josh passes. Adam draws, plays an Urza's Power Plant, and passes. Evan draws and plays an Urza Saga. It enters and moves to Chapter 1. He plays an Arcane Signet and passes. Jack draws, plays a Verdant Catacombs, and cracks it, paying a life, fetching up a Badlands on the battlefield. Jack passes. Josh draws and moves to combat, attacking Jack with Ascendant. Jack takes the hit, and Josh passes. Adam draws, and passes. Evan draws, and Urza Saga moves to Chapter 2. He plays up Badlands and casts his commander, Megatron Destructive Force, and passes. Jack draws and casts Grim Tutor. In response, Josh flashes in an Aven Mind Sensor. Jack looks at the top 4 cards, puts 1 into his hand, and loses 3 life. He plays an Exotic Orchard and passes. Josh draws and moves to combat, attacking Evan with Ascendant and Adam with Mind Sensor. Both take the hits, and in his second main phase, Josh casts his commander, Queen Kayla Bing Krug. Josh passes. Adam draws, moves to discard, and passes. Evan draws, and Urza Saga moves to Chapter 3. He floats mana in response, Saga sacrifices, Evan looks at the top 4, fails to find, and shuffles. He moves to combat and attacks Josh with Megatron, sacrificing Arcane Signet, dealing 1 damage to Mind Sensor and 1 damage to Josh. Megatron is converted, Josh takes the hit, and in his second main phase, Evan converts Megatron, adding 8 colorless mana. He plays Scion of Draco, a Mayhem Devil, and a Vampiric Tutor, fetching up a card to the top of his library and losing 2 life. Evan passes. Jack draws and plays Unmarked Grave, fetching up a Phyrexian Devourer into his graveyard and passing. Josh draws and moves to combat, attacking Evan with Ascendant. Evan takes the hit, and in his second main phase, Josh plays Thalia, Heretic Cathar, and passes. Adam draws, sighs, moves to discard, and passes. Evan draws and moves to combat, attacking Adam with Megatron, sacrificing Scion to Megatron, dealing 2 damage to Thalia and 10 damage to Josh, converting Megatron and pinging Jack with Mayhem Devil. Adam takes the hit, and in his second main phase, Evan converts Megatron and adds 18 colorless mana. He follows it up.
Torment of Hailfire for X equals 19.
Did you even shuffle your deck?
Yes, I did.
I'm not convinced you did.
I've hit 2 cards that I had last game. Total. From my entire pile of half my deck.
Hey, does anybody have a response? With no responses and not enough life, the table sees the writing on the wall, and Evan wins the game. For those of you in the Ames area who stuck around, come to Mayhem Comics and Ames this week and ask for the YouTube discount. You'll be asked the question, who won Game 2? Answer correctly and get 10% off your purchase. Thank you all so much for watching. Be sure to subscribe to catch future videos, and I hope you all have a great rest of your day.